The first and foundational shift in installing the millionaire mindset is this: you've got to believe bigger and you've got to believe faster. Not next year, not when you've read 10 more books, not after your next tax refund. I'm talking now. Your mindset doesn't wait until everything is perfect, because perfection is the enemy of progress. If you wait until the stars line up, you'll be sitting in the same chair 10 years from now with the same problems, same excuses, same broke circle, and the same old story about why your time is coming. Let me tell you something. Your time isn't coming. Your time is here, but your mind hasn't caught up yet. And that's the problem. Most people don't live at their potential. They live at the level of their belief. You'll never earn above your mental ceiling. You can't outperform the image you hold of yourself in your own mind. So if you think you're worth $5,000 a month, you'll find a way to shrink your actions, shrink your offers, shrink your vision until you're right back at $5,000, even if you got $1.50, opportunity handed to you. That's why most lottery winners end up broke, because you can't sustain money that exceeds your mindset. Now listen, there are two types of beliefs operating in your life, conscious and subconscious. You might consciously say, I believe I'm going to be a millionaire. But if your subconscious says, money is hard to get, I'm not good at selling, I'm not qualified, then guess which one wins? The one you feed, the one you rehearse, the one that's been programmed into you by parents, pastors, teachers, culture, and your own past failures. That's why installing the millionaire mindset requires radical rewiring. This is not self-help fluff. This is high-stakes transformation. You've got to examine every belief that's living in your head rent-free and ask, does this belief make me rich or does it make me stuck? If it makes you shrink, it's got to go. If it makes you delay, it's got to go. If it sounds humble but keeps you broke, it's got to go. Because listen, poverty has a sound, scarcity has a rhythm, broke has a vocabulary. It says things like, I'm not ready. I just need a little more time. I don't want to charge too much. I'm afraid I'll fail. But faith has a sound too. Wealth has a tone. Prosperity has a language. It says, I create value. I solve problems. Money flows to me because I multiply solutions. I don't chase money. Money follows my mission. And that's what I'm talking about when I say believe bigger, faster. When you stop waiting and start acting like it's already done, like the million is already printed, the business is already built, the lives are already being changed. That's how visionaries operate. That's how high-level entrepreneurs think. They believe at the speed of revelation, not hesitation. You were not given a small mind. You were not created to think survival thoughts for a lifetime. You were created in the image of the Creator. And if the Creator is limitless, why do you settle for limitations? Why do you honor your doubts more than your destiny? See, most people worship their past more than they believe their future. They believe the facts of their upbringing more than the faith of their becoming. But the truth is, where you start has nothing to do with where you finish. You can be broke today and still be wired for millions. You can be unknown today and still be called to global impact. But if you can't believe it, you'll never build it. And let me tell you this, speed matters. Belief has a momentum to it. If you wait too long to believe in yourself, you'll talk yourself out of opportunities that were tailor-made for you. You'll miss rooms you were meant to lead in because you didn't believe you even belonged. That's why fear delays, but faith decides. Fear asks for confirmation, but faith takes command. Faith is not passive. Faith is not sitting around journaling and meditating for 3 years waiting on a sign. Faith moves, faith applies, faith posts, faith pitches, faith launches the offer before they feel ready. Faith doesn't say, who am I to do this? Faith says, who am I not to? And that's the real difference between the person making $60K a year and the one making $600K a month. One of them is still doubting. The other one decided to believe bigger, faster, and never looked back. The second key to installing the millionaire mindset is to shift from thinking like an earner to thinking like an owner. This is not a motivational slogan. This is a transformational operating system. See, there's a vast difference between a person who earns money and a person who owns value. Most people live their whole lives thinking like earners, trading their time for a paycheck, exchanging hours for dollars, working within someone else's vision instead of building their own. That's not a criticism. That's a condition, and like any condition, it can be cured. An earner thinks in terms of effort. An owner thinks in terms of equity. An earner wakes up and asks, how many hours do I have to work to get paid? An owner wakes up and asks, what value do I create today that pays me tomorrow, next week, and next year? The mindset of an earner is based on limitation. There are only so many hours in a day. There's a ceiling, there's a cap. The mindset of an owner is based on multiplication. There is no ceiling when I own what I build. See, people who think like earners are always focused on wages. That's why they negotiate for $2 more an hour or a 5% raise every year. Their mind is conditioned to believe the only way to make more is to work more. But millionaires don't work more. They work smarter, more strategically, and they focus on building things that outlive their effort. Wealthy people don't ask what they can earn. They ask what they can own. They don't want a raise, they want revenue. They don't want a promotion, they want positioning. And that's the shift you must make if you want to install the millionaire mindset for real. Now, let me go deeper. When you think like an owner, you don't measure your income by your effort. You measure it by your impact. A nurse might work 60 hours a week and still make $70K a year. A business strategist can have one call for 90 minutes and make $25K, not because they're more valuable as a person, but because their perceived value in the marketplace is higher. You're not paid for time, you're paid for transformation, and the moment you stop thinking like a time seller and start thinking like a transformation giver, the game changes forever. This is why some people stay stuck even though they have the skill set, because mentally they still think like employees. They ask things like, am I allowed to charge that much? Or what if no one buys? They price based on their fears instead of their outcomes. Owners don't think that way. Owners know that people don't pay for your time, they pay for their result. When you finally understand that people don't care how long it takes you to get the job done, they only care if you can help them solve their problem. That's when your entire business model flips. You can either be a consumer of opportunities or a creator of opportunities. Employees wait for someone to open the door. Owners build the door and then charge rent to those who want access. When you think like an owner, you begin to design systems, not just schedules. You start thinking, how can I serve 100 people with one offer instead of selling to 100 people one at a time? That's leverage. That's ownership. That's multiplication. That's wealth. Another thing, earners clock out. Owners own everything. That doesn't mean you never rest. It means you are responsible for the outcomes of your life. Employees blame the boss, blame the economy, blame the algorithm. But owners take radical responsibility. They say, if I'm broke, it's my fault. If my business is slow, it's my fault. If I'm undercharging, that's on me. Because when you're the owner, you stop outsourcing your results to outside forces. And here's what most people don't realize. Even if you have a 9-to-5, you can still think like an owner. Ownership is not about job titles. It's about mental titles. You can own your brand. You can own your voice. You can own your skill set and turn it into an asset. The problem is, too many people are living on leased thinking. They're renting their mindset from someone else's limitations. Ownership starts when you take control of your inner narrative and say, "This mind is mine. This calling is mine. This income is mine to multiply." When you think like an owner, you begin to price differently, pitch differently, move differently, and serve differently. Owners look at problems as products. They see pain points as profit opportunities. Where others see chaos, owners see cash flow. Where others see risk, owners see return, because ownership is not about what you have in your hand. It's about what you have in your head when you install this way of thinking. You stop negotiating for survival and start designing for scalability. You stop saying, "How much can I make this month?" and start asking, "How can I build a machine that pays me forever?" That's the real difference between being a worker and being a wealth builder. Earners live off effort. Owners live off systems. Earners hustle for today. Owners position for tomorrow. Earners chase the next deposit. Owners build legacy distribution channels that keep paying them whether they show up or not. Comfort is a silent killer. It doesn't come with warning signs. It doesn't scream like fear or burn like failure. It whispers, it seduces. It convinces you that good enough is good enough. It tricks you into believing that safety is success and that staying where you are is somehow wise. But comfort is a liar. And if you're going to install a millionaire mindset, you have to learn how to detach from comfort and attach to your calling. Most people never walk into their wealth because they're too committed to convenience. They want God to bless their life, but they don't want Him to disrupt it. They say, "Use me," until it's time to move, shift, invest, speak, or stretch. They pray for increase, then panic when increase demands action. Because increase always comes with inconvenience, you cannot expand and stay comfortable. The very nature of growth is uncomfortable. It stretches, it pulls, it provokes, and yes, it tests you, but that test is not sent to break you, it's sent to reveal you. You see, your calling is not found in the safe zones. It's hidden in the deep. It's in the places where your knees shake and your voice trembles. It's in the room where you feel like you don't belong until you open your mouth and realize you were born for that room. But you'll never know that if you stay addicted to comfort. Comfort says, stay where it's familiar. Calling says, go where you've never been. Comfort says, what if you fail? Calling says, what if you change lives? Comfort says, don't risk it. Calling says, it's more dangerous not to. The problem is that most people don't know they're addicted to comfort because their life still looks good. They have the decent job, the decent income, the decent house. But deep inside, they're dying from the disease of unfulfilled potential because you weren't created for decent. You weren't created to maintain. You were created to multiply. You were designed to dominate, not just to exist. And domination requires discomfort. You don't dominate from a recliner. You dominate from a decision. A decision to trade comfort for courage. A decision to step out, speak up, charge more, build bigger, and believe at a level that makes your old self uncomfortable. Look at anyone who's built real wealth, real legacy, real impact. They all had to walk through discomfort. They all had to leave something behind. You may have to leave behind your reputation with small thinkers. You may have to leave behind the approval of broke friends. You may have to leave behind the story you've been telling yourself about why you can't, why it's too late, or why you're not qualified. Because calling will never fit inside a comfort zone. It will always challenge your identity. It will always confront your limitations. And it will always call you higher. Here's the truth. Your comfort zone is not just a physical space. It's a mental prison. It's the place where dreams go to die, dressed up in daily routine. It's the home of procrastination. It's the graveyard of calling. And every time you choose comfort over calling, you reinforce the bars on that mental cage. You build walls around your potential, but the moment you say enough, I wasn't built for average, I wasn't built for ease, I was built for excellence, That's when your life begins to shift. Not because you suddenly got more talent, but because you finally tapped into the divine boldness that was in you the whole time. And let's be clear, calling doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Calling doesn't need your perfect plan. It needs your yes. It needs your willingness. It needs your obedience. Wealth flows to those who obey the uncomfortable prompting to move before they feel prepared. You may not feel ready to coach, but you're called. You may not feel ready to launch the course, but you're called. You may not feel qualified to raise your prices, stand on that stage, or lead that room, but your feelings are irrelevant. Calling is not about feelings. Calling is about faith. The discomfort you're avoiding is the very gate to the destiny you're praying for. And here's what most people don't realize. Comfort always costs more than calling. Comfort robs you slowly. It steals your years. It steals your clarity. It steals your momentum. It steals your impact. Until one day you wake up and realize you spent your whole life avoiding pain, but also avoiding purpose. Because purpose comes with pressure. That pressure is proof you're in the right place. If you don't feel the pressure to level up, you're not walking in purpose. You're walking in patterns. You will never discover the power that's in you until you are put in a position that demands it. And that position is never comfortable. It stretches your faith, your discipline, your vision, and your voice. It asks for a version of you that doesn't yet exist in the physical, but already lives in your potential. And you won't meet that version of you until you detach from the need to be safe and reattach to the call to be significant. Significance is uncomfortable, impact is inconvenient. But the reward is always worth the resistance to install the millionaire mindset. You must come to grips with a fundamental shift. The world does not pay you for your labor. It pays you for your value. You can sweat for 12 hours a day and still be broke. You can work hard, show up early, stay late, and still have more month than money. Because money doesn't move because of labor. Money moves because of perceived and delivered value. Until you master value creation, you'll be stuck in a cycle of exhaustion without elevation. Most people are programmed from childhood to believe the key to success is to work hard. That's noble, but incomplete. It's honorable, but not scalable. Hard work without the understanding of how to create, communicate, and capture value will always lead to limitation. You've seen it already. Some of the hardest working people you know are also the most financially limited. They grind day in and day out, but what they don't realize is that their income is not determined by effort alone. It's determined by how much transformation they deliver in the marketplace. The difference between a six-figure income and a six-figure business is not hours, it's value. You could have two people doing the exact same task. One gets paid $20 an hour, the other gets paid $20 zero for a session. Why? Because one delivers labor. The other delivers outcomes. One sees themselves as a worker. The other sees themselves as a solution. And that's the millionaire mindset. Stop thinking like a time trader and start thinking like a value architect. Let's break this down. When you operate from the labor mindset, your focus is always on input: how much time, how much energy, how many calls, how many hours. But when you operate from the value mindset, your focus shifts to output: how much impact, how much transformation, how much clarity or relief or opportunity you deliver. You move from measuring activity to measuring outcomes, and the marketplace does not reward activity. It rewards outcomes. You are not paid to be busy. You are paid to be effective. That's why two people can be in the same industry, using the same tools, and have completely different financial realities. It's not the niche. It's not the algorithm. It's not luck. It's the mindset. One person sees themselves as a service provider. The other sees themselves as a value multiplier. And when you multiply value, you multiply income. You increase your internal awareness of the value you bring, you amplify that value through the right messaging, and then you deliver that value consistently to people who are willing to exchange currency for the solution you carry. But here's the challenge: most people don't know the value they carry because they've spent their whole life being trained to obey systems, not to build solutions. You've been told what to do, how to do it, when to clock in, when to go home. And as long as you're inside that structure, you feel secure. But millionaire thinking doesn't operate within systems built by others. It creates new systems. It studies the problems people are desperate to solve and then designs pathways that solve them faster, better, or with less friction. That's what value creation looks like. Value is not just about what you know. It's about how you apply what you know to solve real, painful, urgent problems. You might have skills that are second nature to you, but to someone else, that same knowledge is life-changing. You might be sitting on a process, a framework, an experience that someone would pay thousands for if you positioned it as a solution. But if you package it as just helping out, or being useful, or doing your best, and don't translate that into marketable value, you'll keep getting paid like a laborer instead of being rewarded like a leader. And value isn't just technical, it's emotional, it's experiential. Value is created when you give someone clarity where they once had confusion, when you give peace where they had anxiety, when you unlock a vision for their life or business that they couldn't access on their own. And the deeper the pain you solve, the higher the value you can assign. People don't pay for coaching. They pay for confidence. They don't pay for your course. They pay to collapse the time it takes to get from problem to solution. They don't pay for your session. They pay for speed, access, and transformation. When you master value creation, you stop looking at yourself as a product of your job title and start operating as a brand of transformation. You begin to ask the questions millionaires ask. How do I create something once that pays me again and again? How do I package my expertise in a way that someone would gladly invest in? How do I become known for solving a specific kind of problem with excellence and consistency? Because when you solve problems predictably and with clarity, your value becomes undeniable. And once you understand your value, you no longer fear charging for it. You no longer apologize for your price point. You no longer hesitate to sell. Why? Because you've detached your worth from labor and attached your worth to transformation. You don't sell products. You don't sell programs. You deliver outcomes. And when you become a master at delivering outcomes, money chases you. Not because you're lucky, not because you're famous, but because the market always finds and funds real value. You don't need more hustle. You need more value per move. You don't need to add more hours. You need to extract more power from the hours you already have. One of the foundational shifts you must make to install the millionaire mindset is this: move from addition to multiplication. That shift right there is not just about math, it's about mental strategy. People who think in addition are always trying to add income here, add a client there, add a sale this week. But millionaires don't think in terms of what they can add. They think in terms of what they can multiply. Because addition is linear, multiplication is exponential, and the path to wealth is never a straight line, it's a compounding curve. Addition is the default mode of the masses. It's the reason people get excited about side hustles that make an extra $200 a month. It's why they look for a part-time gig that gives them a little cushion. There's nothing wrong with starting small, but if you stay in that lane, you'll exhaust yourself trying to stack pennies instead of positioning yourself to own the pipeline. When you embrace multiplication, you stop thinking, how do I make an extra $500 this month? And you start asking, how do I create a machine that brings in $50 every month, whether I'm working or not? Multiplication is a mindset before it's a money strategy. You've got to understand the power of creating systems that scale, offers that scale, impact that scales. In the realm of multiplication, you stop seeing yourself as a hustler and start seeing yourself as a producer of wealth. Hustlers grind, producers design, hustlers chase, producers create ecosystems. You have to decide, are you going to keep chasing the next sale, or are you going to build something that sells for you? Because one is addition and the other is multiplication, let's go deeper. When you multiply, you stop depending on your own effort alone. You begin to leverage. That means your knowledge gets turned into curriculum. Your coaching gets turned into a cohort. Your product gets turned into a program. Your brand becomes a platform. You no longer rely on one-to-one. You move into one-to-many. And from there, you go from one to many to many to many because your students, your clients, your customers start multiplying your influence by sharing their transformation with others. Now, you're not just working for revenue, you've activated referral revenue and residual revenue because your value is reproducing itself through people and platforms. People stuck in addition thinking are always doing the math on how much time they have left in the day. People walking in multiplication are asking, what can I build that pays me again and again from a single investment of effort? That's what wealthy people do. They multiply assets, they multiply attention, they multiply impact, and because of that, their income multiplies. It's not magic, it's mechanics, but the mechanics don't work without the mindset. Now here's the thing about multiplication. It doesn't feel comfortable at first. Because multiplication requires risk. It requires decisions that stretch your logic. It calls for action that may not bring immediate return. But that's the nature of seeds. When you plant one seed, you're not adding, you're multiplying. A single seed doesn't produce a single fruit. It produces a tree, which produces fruit, which produces more seeds. That's how multiplication works. But if you eat the seed because you're thinking in addition, you kill the harvest because you were unwilling to invest it into the ground of purpose. When you start thinking like a multiplier, you stop asking, what can I do to make money? And you start asking, what can I build that others can engage with, benefit from, and even contribute to long after I've created it? You write the book once, but it sells 1,000 times. You record the training once, but hundreds go through it. You build the framework once, but coaches, clients, and companies begin using it as a foundation for their own breakthroughs. That's how you shift from being income-focused to being impact-focused, and from being impact-focused to being infrastructure-focused. Infrastructure is the language of multiplication. You can't multiply what's only in your head. You've got to document it, systematize it, automate it, package it, protect it, position it, and then release it to work without you. Because multiplication doesn't need your presence. It needs your principles. Once your principles are in place, once your strategy is solid, once your offer is proven, then you can step back and let the machine work. That's when freedom shows up. That's when legacy begins. Because legacy is multiplication that continues when you're not in the room. Here's the key. Addition gives you money. Multiplication gives you wealth. And wealth is not just about how much money you have. It's about how long your money lasts and how many people it impacts. Wealth is when your name has more value than your job title. Wealth is when your systems feed your family for generations. Wealth is when your voice, your value, your work outlive your labor. And the only way to step into that level is to move from playing small games of addition and step into the bold, strategic arena of multiplication thinking. You multiply when you stop reinventing and start replicating. You multiply when you stop selling and start licensing. You multiply when you stop teaching content and start building curriculum. You multiply when you stop thinking transactionally and start thinking transformationally. You multiply when you look at what you've already done, already built, already survived, and realize that it's not just your testimony, it's your template. And templates, when properly packaged, can be duplicated and distributed over and over again. That's how you go from being a service provider to a system creator, and from a system creator to a scalable leader. You cannot install the millionaire mindset without first aligning yourself with divine principles that govern wealth, not the world's watered down hustle till you collapse version of success, but the kingdom blueprint that governs overflow, stewardship, and multiplication. If you want to live in supernatural abundance, you must stop operating in natural limitation. You must stop chasing tactics and start aligning with truth. Because tactics might give you a temporary breakthrough, but truth gives you generational dominion. Wealth is not random, it's not reserved for a select few, it's a result, and results are governed by principles. You don't get to bypass divine law and expect kingdom-level outcomes. You can't violate spiritual truth and still expect financial peace. The same God who said, "Let there be light," also set principles in motion that govern harvest, stewardship, giving, and growth. He's not surprised by wealth. He designed it, and he gave us clear instructions on how to access it, not by striving, but by surrendering to his system. One of the first principles you must embrace is the law of sowing and reaping. You cannot reap what you have not sown. You cannot plant inconsistency and expect harvest. You cannot speak lack, act in fear, and then wonder why doors won't open. Faith is not just a belief, it's a behavior. When you align with divine wealth, you begin to give not out of what you have left, but out of what you believe God is about to multiply. You sow seed where you want to grow, not where you're comfortable. That's a spiritual law, and laws don't care about your feelings. They respond to your faith. Another principle you must live by is stewardship. God is not obligated to increase what you refuse to manage. If you waste $100, don't expect him to trust you with $100,000. If you can't honor your business like it's already six figures, why would heaven release the clients to match it? Stewardship means I treat the seed like it's already harvest. I treat the platform, the email list, the one client, the one opportunity like it's a divine assignment, not just a stepping stone. When you steward what's small with integrity and excellence, you open the gates for divine acceleration. Then there's the principle of vision. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But let's flip that. Where there is vision, provision flows. You don't need to chase money. You need to carry a vision so big, so clear, so impactful, that money has no choice but to fund it. Heaven doesn't finance your comfort, it finances your calling. But you must have the faith to write the vision, speak the vision, walk toward the vision even when resources look thin. Because faith doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. It obeys, it acts, it moves, and as you move, heaven moves with you. Divine alignment also requires obedience, and not just the obvious kind. I'm talking about the quiet, behind the scenes kind. The obedience to rest when he says rest. The obedience to raise your price even when you're afraid. The obedience to leave that partnership, drop that offer, pivot that brand when God says that season is done. You can't walk in God's favor while clinging to expired instructions. Obedience is a multiplier. One act of bold obedience can open a lifetime of favor, but delayed obedience is still disobedience. And disobedience is expensive. It doesn't just cost you money, it costs you momentum, peace, access, clarity. Then we come to identity. You cannot access divine wealth while still operating under a broken identity. You cannot think like a slave and lead like a king. You cannot carry shame and expect to walk in dominion. You've got to know who you are, not in your flesh, not by your trauma, not by your job title, but in your spiritual authority. You are not a beggar. You are not an accident. You are not trying to make ends meet. You are a child of the King, heir to a kingdom, and your inheritance includes abundance, not just survival. But you will never claim what you don't believe belongs to you. And when you really grasp that, when you truly understand that you were created for more than just bills, survival, and just enough, you stop playing small. You stop apologizing for your brilliance. You stop dumbing down your value. You stop hiding in mediocrity. Because you realize that the world is waiting for what God placed inside you. And when you release that with faith, with excellence, with integrity, you don't just make income. You make impact. You don't just grow a business. You advance the kingdom. There is a difference between profit and prosperity. Profit is transactional. Prosperity is transformational. Profit happens when you exchange value. Prosperity happens when you align with divine vision. Profit is temporal. Prosperity touches eternity, and real prosperity doesn't just bless you. It overflows into your family, your community, your legacy. It builds schools, funds missions, feeds nations, sets captives free. That's what divine wealth is for. Not for ego, not for flaunting, but for impact. If you're going to operate in divine wealth, you've got to renew your mind daily. You've got to tear down every lie that says money is evil, that you're unworthy, that wealth is only for them. You've got to saturate your spirit with truth until you believe it more than you believe your past. Because the greatest limitation isn't in your bank account. It's in your belief system. And once your beliefs align with God's principles, there is no limit to what can flow through your life, your business, and your assignment on this earth. The millionaire mindset is not something you stumble into. It's something you install with intention, conviction, and alignment. It's a total transformation of how you think, how you believe, how you move, and how you steward your God-given assignment. It begins when you stop chasing money and start becoming a vessel of value. It expands when you break the limitations of fear, stop worshiping labor, and start multiplying what you've already been given. It matures when you learn to create systems that serve others even when you're not present. And it becomes unshakable when it's rooted in divine principles. When your finances flow through the filter of faith, obedience, and vision. You're not here to blend in. You're here to lead. You're not designed for survival. You're built for overflow. But overflow doesn't come by accident. It's activated by alignment. And once your thoughts align with truth, once your actions align with purpose, once your business aligns with divine order, you don't just build income, you build impact. You build influence. You build legacy. So don't just upgrade your goals, upgrade your mindset. Don't just increase your hustle, increase your honor. Don't just add strategies, install principles. Because when you install the millionaire mindset, you don't just create wealth. You create transformation that outlives you, outgrows you, and glorifies the one who gave you the assignment in the first place.